In the sprawling wilderness of Yosemite National Park, a haunting mystery has lingered for decades. It began with the discovery of human remains, first a severed arm in 1983, and years later a skull. Forensic experts and investigators struggled to piece together the puzzle, but for nearly 40 years the identity of the victim remained a question mark. Who was this mystery person, and how did this happen to them in what is for most a place of peace and tranquility? In 2021, advancements in genetic genealogy provided the breakthrough that brought a name to this long-forgotten case: Patricia Hicks. Her story, one of searching for meaning, vulnerability, and manipulation, would shine a light on the darker side of human behaviour, where spirituality and control intersect in dangerous ways. Today, we're unpacking the mystery of Patricia Hicks, a woman who disappeared under chilling circumstances tied to a secretive cult whose fugitive leader is still at large. The mystery of Patricia Hicks. Yosemite National Park, one of America's most iconic landscapes, has long been a place of wonder and awe. Towering granite cliffs, cascading waterfalls, and ancient sequoias draw millions of visitors each year. But beneath its natural beauty lies a darker side, a history of disappearances, unexplained deaths, and unsolved mysteries. In June 1983, a family hiking through Summit Meadow made a grim discovery that will add to Yosemite's reputation as a place of unanswered questions. They stumbled upon a severed human arm and a hand. Partially buried beneath the soil, park rangers quickly launched a search of the surrounding area, but no additional remains were found at the time. The arm and hand were taken to forensic experts, who determined they likely belonged to a petite adult female. However, without further evidence or advanced DNA technology, identifying the victim proved impossible. For years, this unidentified individual became known as the Summit Meadow Jane Doe, a tragic enigma of the park's history. In 1988, a second discovery deepened the mystery. A skull missing its mandible was found near the same area. This renewed efforts to identify the victim, but the lack of forensic advancements meant the case went cold once again. For nearly 4 decades, remains were stored in evidence lockers, a silent testament to a life cut short. Then, in 2021, a breakthrough occurred. Scientists analysed the DNA from the remains and compared it to the public genealogy databases. The results were conclusive. The victim was 28-year-old Patricia Marie Hicks, a woman who disappeared in 1982. This revelation answered one question, but raised many more. Who was Patricia Hicks? How did her remains end up in Yosemite? And most importantly, what led to her tragic death? Patricia Hicks, or Patty as she was known, was born on the 1st of June 1954 in Washington State. Her early years were marked by warmth and stability. She was the middle child in a close-knit family, described by those who knew her as bright, kind, and introspective. But tragedy struck the Hicks family in 1971 when Patty's older brother Edwin took his own life. Edwin's death had a profound impact on Patty, shaking her sense of security and sparking a lifelong search for meaning. After graduating high school, she enrolled in college but struggled to find her footing. Her interests ranged from sociology to religious studies, reflecting a growing curiosity about life's deeper questions. In the late 1970s, Patty had become increasingly drawn to spiritual exploration. It was at a time when alternative religions and self-help movements were flourishing in the United States. Unfortunately, this era of spiritual awakening also provided fertile ground for manipulation and dangerous cults. In 1980, Patty moved to Merced, California, where she encountered Donald Eugene Gibson, the leader of the Sanada Apostolic Church. Gibson presented himself as a prophet and spiritual guide, offering followers a sense of purpose and belonging. But behind his charismatic facade was a predator who preyed on the vulnerable. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, please do us a favour and drop a like below and maybe consider subscribing. That is the only interruption you'll be getting from me. Let's get back to the cult. Former members of the Sanada Apostolic Church would later describe it as a textbook cult. Gibson isolated his followers from their families, controlled their finances, and subjected them to psychological manipulation. Allegations of drugging and assault eventually surfaced, painting a disturbing picture of life within the group. For Patty, the church seemed to provide a community and meaning she had been seeking. She became deeply involved, attending meetings and living communally with other members. Friends and family noticed a dramatic change in her behaviour. She stopped communicating regularly and began speaking in ways that echoed the group's teachings. In September 1982, Patty sent her final letter to her mother, saying she had found a place where she felt she truly belonged. Days later, she disappeared. When questioned about About her absence, members of the church gave conflicting accounts. Some claimed she had left voluntarily to embark on spiritual retreat. Others suggested she had cut ties with the group entirely. An eyewitness said she left the cult and then was last seen on a bus heading to Yosemite National Park. But as weeks turned into months, it became clear that Patty was not coming back. The discovery of her remains in 1983 and 1988 provided physical evidence but no answers about the circumstances of it. The connection to Gibson and his church raised troubling questions. Did Patty attempt to leave the cult and face retaliation? Was she abandoned in the wilderness under Gibson's orders? Or did she fall victim to an unrelated tragedy in the rugged terrain of Yosemite? Donald Eugene Gibson's role in the story cannot be overlooked. In 1981, he was arrested and charged with multiple accounts of assault and child endangerment. Witnesses describing how he used LSD to drug his victims, a practice that allowed him to maintain control while committing heinous acts. Before he could be sentenced, Gibson escaped custody and vanished. Decades later, he remains a fugitive. Authorities have long suspected that Gibson knows more about Patty's disappearance and death than he ever admitted, but without his testimony or new evidence, the truth remains elusive. But that is only one theory. Although at the moment most consider this the most likely cause of Patricia's untimely death, the severed arm and missing body parts could be linked potentially to an animal attack. As Yosemite National Park hosts black bears, coyotes, and California ground squirrels, however I doubt the latter could have caused this, as although the acute, observers have documented them hunting and eating other animals, which is terrifying for a creature that looks so harmless. It is likely that the severed arm could have been caused by an attack from a dangerous animal. However, the question would rise as to why the animal left it and didn't consume it, as would normally happen in nature. Black bears can sometimes attack out of defense if a human is too close to them or if they're near one of the cubs. This could explain why it was left. However, that doesn't answer why the other parts were not found close to the location. The case of Patricia Hicks is a tragic example of how vulnerable individuals can be exploited by manipulative figures. Her search for meaning led her into the orbit of a dangerous man, and her story ended in one of the nation's most iconic natural landscapes, far from family and friends who loved her. Today, her case is a stark reminder of the importance of safeguarding vulnerable populations and pursuing justice for victims of exploitation. Advances in forensic science have brought us closer to the truth, but questions still remain unanswered, and we still need more information. What do you think happened to Patricia Hicks? Please comment below what you think happened to her. How did she lose the arm? Was the cult involved? Could it have been as a result of a wild animal in the park, or was it something completely unrelated? Thank you for listening. If you found today's episode compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to support our mission of uploading unsolved and interesting mysteries and stories of our world.